Indio 2025. My name is Adrian Edwin. And I'm gonna get the behind of this. And I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Family and Community Engagement. For the next hour, you're going to spend some time with me and my wonderful teammate, LaDonna Ellis. And we're going to talk to you about family engagement and how we support the work that you are doing in your classrooms and in your district throughout the school year. So some of our outcomes for today is that we really want all of you to know how important you are to building school culture around family partnerships. We want you to really understand the benefits of family engagement, not just to your students and your families, but to you and your coworkers and the community at large. There are also 6 process conditions that we're going to talk about that are evident in research that really are going to help you when you're planning for events for families and students so that you can make them more meaningful, robust, and impactful. We want you to leave here today after learning with us, really knowing how to build and leverage relationships with families, how to utilize those 6 process conditions we talked about, and how to seek support from our division and from all of the other wonderful staff members we have here in our district. So this is a large-ish group, right? So we want you to really think about how you can best engage and participate in learning today. So the first thing is always, hey, we want to always show up in a respectful manner. We want to listen, we want to remain curious, non-judgmental, because you're going to have conversations. Family engagement is hard. It sounds easy, it seems intuitive, but it's hard work to build trusting relationships with people that you don't know. Right? The purpose is you're trying to get better. You're going to have conversations about that. I'm going to ask you to lean into some of that discomfort. I'm going to ask you to lean into the discussions that we're having today and to really collaborate. Some of you have been doing this work for a while and you have some great ideas that you can share with new teachers or teachers who are new to the community that they're serving. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out if I'm here and I'm actually going to have a few times for you guys to have those group discussions, table discussions. If I move your attention back to the front, I'm simply going to use a hand signal and I'm going to ask you guys to finish that thought and then direct your attention back to it. LaDonna is going to have a microphone at some point if you want you guys to share out or if you have something you'd like to contribute, and she'll get the mic to you as soon as possible. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is how do you feel to take a group photo? And when was the last time you experienced a large group photo? How that conversation was taken?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. They're just saying it's free, it's not ours. Now, I think, oh, no.
Finish your thought. So hopefully just recalling some of those memories created some happy thoughts for you. I haven't taken a photo with over 100 people like before a year ago, which was my targeted class reunion. I hadn't done that since my senior year in high school. So how many of you may have done at family reunions with over 100 people? I see a couple hands. So happy memories are good. Right? Some people say their schools do it. Right? So some great community moments. So let's think about the work. We're gonna jump into it. We talked about what we once learned. This is how we're gonna get there. In today's work, we're gonna talk about what is true family engagement. So how do we define that? What does that mean to you? Why family engagement is vital to the work that you do in your classrooms? How to begin this work? What supports are available? And then how do we engage all families in this work? That's how we're gonna start. So what is family engagement? When you think of the work of engaging families, what do you think of? And I have 4 people sharing their thoughts, and I'm really something. Hands, I see 1. I see 2 over there.
I think building relationships with your families looks like discussing their child, getting to know their child, exchanging your perspectives on what you're experiencing versus what they're experiencing. Trying to know the kinds of values that they have and just really learn how to communicate with them in a way that suits their needs. Yeah, I could go on for more, but
No, we appreciate that. You talked about communication, preferred methods of contact or communication, getting to know them, right? I think there was a hand right there, and then I see another. Great. Right. You.
I also think that it has a lot to do with building relationships, knowing the family dynamic, but also bringing like your community, your classroom community together. Not just like connecting singularly with one family, but creating like a support system.
Yeah, community. So I think you have a hand here, and then you have number 4 right here. Thank you for volunteering.
I think collaborating with families so that they feel like they're a part of the student's educational experience, even if they can't actively be in the room, making sure there's allowing that.
Yeah, so even if they can't be in the room, that they can see into the room, that they can be part of the learning that is taken. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's not just the students, we're servicing students, but it's their own life, and so it's getting to know their family, their siblings, parents, things like that, because beyond us, that's where they're spending the most time, and she knows it best, and that's gonna help us and us.
Absolutely. So here's something I want you to remember as you move to the year. The student is in your classroom, but their family and their community are right there with you. They can't disconnect from who they are and where they come from to come to school. It would be unfair. We don't ask that of you. When you come into this space, we want you to authentically be yourself to welcome. Right? So we really want you to think about that. When we think about family engagement, we want you to think of a few words. It's a shared responsibility. It's school, home, and community working together. It's us really reaching out to families. We're gonna talk a little bit about what reaching out means. Because you're gonna become a part of the community. Some of you talked about family reunions in your group photos. Some of you talked about schools in your group photo, right? That means your school created community. And when we have families who have lived in that community and they may not have great experiences in those schools, they're not likely to reach in. So we have to be meaningfully reaching out to them. We also want you to think about it as a continuous process. Some of you might be early childhood, some of you are high school. Families matter on every level of their students' careers. So we will talk about this from cradle to career. The other part is that family engagement does all the things that you talked about, But the biggest principle is really to reinforce learning. We're not just engaging families because it's the right and moral thing to do, but we know that families have a huge impact on the learning outcomes of their students. So we need to support their ability to reinforce learning across settings. So that means learning can happen in their community. It can happen on a walk to and from school. And sometimes we forget that parents aren't trained educators like we. And we need to really inspire them to say, did you know that just looking at the colors outside is a great way to start your child? Right? Little things like that. So this is what we need when we're talking about family engagement. We also want you to think about this huge tool. It's a piece of paper that we use all the time. It's called the Dual Capacity Framework for Family and School Partnership. It's one piece of paper, but I call it a huge tool because it has 40 years of research embedded into this one. And on this document, you will find that it tells you what some of the barriers are. It talks about the challenges that you as educators have stated for years that prevent you from really engaging families. If I ask you now, just to shout out to you, some of you would say time. Some people would actually tell me that there's a little bit of anxiety when we're talking to parents. Right? Some will say, I tried this before and it didn't work out well. And that's exactly what research says, that educators sometimes haven't had great models of what family engagement is. That they've reached out and tried to do this work and sort of got a little punished because parents weren't always nice to them. They sometimes don't feel like they have the time or that it's valued in their entire school culture. But then when we talk to families, families have told us they don't feel valued or respected when they show up. That they also don't even know what it's to look like. And in fact, even in our district, I'll tell you, when we first started doing this work, like very intentionally 8, 9, 10 years ago, we did surveys of families, teachers, and parents. And the oddest thing happened. Parents rated us better with family engagement than our own teachers rated themselves. Right? Because they were like, you're telling me, you're calling me, but we know that the real work is how do we get you to support the learning, not just us communicating the problems or what's next, but how do we share strategies and supports. One of the other pieces that I want you to pay attention to, and I do believe this is in your blue folder, so if you have a blue folder, this document is there. You also have a link to the web page. But the purple box is really important because the purple box actually has those 6 process conditions that I talked to you about at the very beginning. And I said, we're going to learn a little more about. Family engagement is research-based. The process conditions are what research tells us if we do this when we have families with us, this is how we get the impact that we're looking for from them. What you'll see first, it talks about relationships, and I don't want you said that family engagement is about building relationships. It is. But relationships alone won't improve student outcomes. Those relationships have to be built on trust, but people have to trust you enough to be vulnerable enough to tell you what they know and what they don't know. That's your students too, right? That's even us as adults. You have to know what you don't know and trust somebody to tell us to learn. So family engagement is about development. How can I help families know what are the reading strategies or what are reading supports that they can use to support their children? And how am I going to respond if the family tells me that they themselves want literally not to? Am I going to say, well, you don't have to teach your child? Or am I going to find other strategies so that they can still have impact on the child's learning? Family engagement is not being asset-based, right? You work third shift, but can you give 10 minutes? Right? It's not saying what people can't do, but really identifying where they can support and what they can't do. It's also about being culturally responsive and respectful. How do I make this learning match up and merge to your culture and your experiences in a way that it comes to life for you and your family and for you and people? And then the last two are just as important. It's really about being collaborative and interactive. Because people learn by doing, they learn by seeing. And we have to do the same thing for families. And I'm not saying we have to teach the parents like we do a class for their students, but imagine this. Imagine you have a student in your class struggling with a math assignment. You see they're right on the cusp, but you have to move more. What if you could give that parent strategies and materials to continue this learning at home? What if they felt confident enough to use it because you showed them a video of you teaching it in your class? And you even said to them, if you have any questions about how to do this, give me a call. Do you think that would increase the likelihood of them doing it versus you just sending on the worksheet? That's what family engagement is. I'm not sending my partner to do the work without the information. And if families are truly our partners, I want you to think about this. How are we preparing them to partner with us? Take a second at your table. We're going to give you 2 minutes. Talk about the 6 process conditions. Have you used them? Even if you didn't know what they were called or how you were working with them, have you actually tried to embed these? And if not, this is something you'd be willing to do. Just have a conversation, 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was very hard at first. They didn't want to. Yeah. But then once they got to know, it's very. So like going into the ground. That just was for class. Anyway, we could for the books, or you went. With anything, it's social and feels like. They had to go. And after not. Social work. Oh, yeah, I know that. Families were not, they think about who solved it. Yes, the families. All the eggs. Yeah, kindergarten to, we didn't do. We could do it during the plan time. Or we could do it after. Yeah, exactly. So it was usually just like right after school. Day out was like. It was a big.
You, that's your thought.
Like. Like. Yeah, I mean.
So does anybody have anything that they want to share about process conditions, any challenges you have? I've done this work before, and Madonna's actually on the left side of the room, but she tends to be popping these heads in the conversation. We got all the answers from the right to left side, so we'll move you over. Who'd like to share? Just do it. I see one and I see 2. All right, thank you for volunteering.
I've done this before, and so one of the things that a lot of times, we as educators shy away from, telling parents that, you know, what their students' weaknesses are, or giving this time for them to persist, you know, possibly move on from a service that they're providing, like something they need. It always feels like we built it, so I kind of like to kind of celebrate it, so that, I mean, we deal out of it, so that the courts when it's student on qualifies for a service or accommodation or something, and then we celebrate it, so it doesn't feel like the parents do anything. But a lot of this is, of course, you want to look at everything from a positive perspective, but also being mindful that as editors, that we are responsible for identifying those students' weaknesses, so that we can kind of work with them to help them overcome those challenges.
Thank you for sharing. One of the most important things and all of the things were important, but you highlight the importance of honest communication, right? Is really starting to have a conversation about what the needs are. And then even when the conversation feels like they may be losing something, reframing that so that they see it's really a celebration that your child no longer needs the support. But that would be great if you started having that conversation, that that's the entire idea of special education. Right, is that we want to support until the support is no longer needed, and that's a great thing to do. Right, so thank you for that.
At former school, we were on campus, so we were required to host our lessons, all the materials, even if they had hard copies online, so parents could look it up. Which reached a lot of parents, if they didn't know how to use it, or if it's set up, they could come in on anytime, somebody in the office would help them figure it out, we would help them figure it out, but people meetings that it doesn't reach all of them. If they don't have internet access. Or maybe they didn't finish school with their kids, so that I can see where this marks really involved with that. And especially like sending the materials and just like said, posting a video.
Thank you, right, you identified the importance of being collaborative, but also being aware that everybody doesn't have the same access or the same knowledge to utilize it, right? And so we have to be very aware, but we have to be intentional about accessing and finding that information, right? We make an assumption, we have Canvas, everybody should use it, right? That, it doesn't work that way. And we need to know that there are grandparents raising children who are technology intimidated, that aren't going to do that. We still have families that do not have internet access in their homes, so they're not able to do that. And so part of this is communicating and finding out the need, but also when we find that information out, that we do that in such a dignity honoring way, that they don't feel like it's a deficit to not know it or to not have it. All right, so that is what we're gonna talk about today. How do we incorporate those essential conditions into the work you're already doing? I want you to think about this not as doing more, but it is doing what you're planning more intentionally in the work of the school. Why is it important? Why is the work important? I'm gonna tell you a couple of reasons. I'm gonna start with the one, for those who are rule followers in the room, I know it's a bunch of you in here because you're educators. I want you to know it's law. Right, family engagement is law, it's within our policies here in special school districts. We have our school improvement plans based on family engagement, we know partnership staff. So if you need that, here it is. The other thing that I really wanna tell you, and that if you can tell me these, we have 3 values in our school district. We're talking about 3. Does anybody know those 3? And it's not adoption. Anybody know? I'm gonna give them to you, so I want you to remember them. Because they are important to me. And they are important to you. They are equity, collaboration, and commitment. Family engagement incorporates all 3 of those. Right? Equity, collaboration, and commitment. When we talk today, and we're gonna go through 4 core beliefs about family engagement, I want you to see how they align with those as well. Okay, so this is a big why. We have policy It is part of our school improvement plans, our district plans, ESSA, and our DEA. Tell us that we need to create meaningful opportunities for families, that we need to be intentional about outreach to families. Let's talk about why a little more. Family engagement is important because we don't have the time. Right, we think we don't have time to engage families, but the truth is when you don't engage families, you're gonna use more time in the end. We all know this. If we don't do the work up front, you do it on the back end. So we need to be proactive with work. Time is also important for this reason. We think that kids spend a lot of time in school. I think we all do because you think as educators, you spend a lot of time in school. But a gentleman by the name of Herbert Wahlberg actually did a study called the Curriculum of the Home. And he did some math. And what he said is that 92% of the time a student spends outside of school is the amount of time students spend outside of school the first 18 years of their lives. So think about that, from birth to 18. What he's calculating is summer, sleep, all of the other pieces. So one of my coworkers did the math from kindergarten to 12 so that you can see it in real time. And what she said is that the student here in SSD, in our school, when I cover them, it's 178 student days. They spend about 6.5 hours a day in school, they said, for 13 years. If you can see this, what you'll see is only 13% of that time is actually in a school building. The time they're in school. Most of the time, in a student's life, they're really at home and in their community. So when educators are in their classroom bearing this weight of educating children by themselves, you're putting a heavier weight on yourself. Partnering with families and community agencies and learning what is out there where they are going to be is a huge, huge lift for you. It's have somebody else do some of the work with you. We engage families because families have 54% of the time. Imagine you being able to reinforce what you're teaching in the classroom. Imagine that partnership supporting what you're learning, what you're teaching to their students in more than one setting. The last one I want to center is we talked about the benefits of family engagement. Your students end up better, right? We know that they have better behavior, better grades, better likelihood of high school graduation. They increase their social skills. I remember working in school and I would go talk to a kid and I would say, let's go call mom. You don't know my mom? Yes, I do. Yes, I do, because I built a relationship with her. And I'm not calling her because you're in trouble. I'm calling because I want her to know that you did something amazing today. And guess what? Mom was answering her phone and she's a little apprehensive. And I'm like, no, we're celebrating. Because I know the importance of building relationships and creating and shaping relationships. Our students' parents sometimes don't get those positive phone calls. They get reactive phone calls. And we do a training, and we talk about this all the time, and think about it. If you have, I don't know what Android users have in their homes. So, but if you have an Android, you get 2 buttons to decide when somebody calls you. I want you to be honest. How many of you know a person that you don't get the ring right now? There are people who refuse to talk to. And we refuse to talk to them for several reasons. They either bring down the vibration. They want something that we're not willing to hear. But they trained us not to talk to them. And sometimes education has done the same to our families. If everything is going to be negative, then parents, families, and caregivers are human beings too, and they protect their ego. It's called self-preservation. Your voicemail is gonna tell me the same thing you won't tell me on the phone. So when we build a relationship with positive phone calls, We're also increasing family well-being, their knowledge and their skills. They're more willing to partner with you when they know that you care. When you put the time in from the beginning. When you tell me that Johnny is not doing something right, and you told me 5 times how he was doing something right, I can give that a partner. It also means that you enjoy your job better. When you have families on your team supporting you, supporting your work, you as educators too, you enjoy your job. You stay in those job positions. When you feel attacked all the time, that's not a good feeling for anybody. Right? We also know the why is because when we do family engagement, we're not deciding who we're engaging because our goal is to engage everyone. Our goal is to meet the needs of every family. And it doesn't look the same. That's why it's equity. Some of your families are gonna want phone calls, some of them are gonna prefer text messages, and some emails. When we differentiate that, we're making all families accessible to us. When we're using the languages that they speak in their home to set communication, we're doing the work of family. All right? So we're gonna make a shift. We've talked a lot. The real question is how do we begin and where do we begin? I shared with you 6 process conditions. I told you what each of them are. All of them are important. But I want you to turn to your shoulder partner and I want you to decide which is where you start. Have a conversation, 2 minutes, shoulder partner. Which of those process conditions is where you think we start? And then I would like 2 of you share.
Yeah. No, like, just like catching 3 times. Oh, I talked to them, she had, be like. I never did it. I haven't done it. Like, I don't, like, but it was so, and I just thought about that. Why I haven't done it yet. It's such a fun. Yeah. Yes, or some. You know, it's. I believe. Yeah. I can say that I thought this is okay. For every single year, like. People started, like, big cats about and. I would. Yeah. And. Yeah, she's like. But she was not here yet.
Finish your talking. Who has the right answer? What do you think it is? I don't know what you say. Relational, absolutely. Here's the thing, when I share with you this document, the dual capacity framework, that's actually the second iteration of it, right? There are convenings all over the country to talk about the work of family engagement. And the research does give you all of these process conditions. But in the first iteration, relationships were number 4. Like, it wasn't necessarily ranked when they did the list. But what they found is that a lot of people are compliance driven. Right? So they did the work, but they didn't build the relationships. And so what we say is you can build it. Right? You can create these fancy events and make your classroom all pretty and welcoming. But if you really want intentional about the invitation and the relationship, people are coming. Relationships make a difference. They make a difference to you. Parents need to feel welcome into the work. They need to feel like you believe that they can make a difference in the work of their children. And I know it sounds like a lot, like I gotta teach your kids everything. But the reality is that if we're not engaging parents or family members in the work, then you're really teaching harm. Some of the work you're doing, especially if you're working on behaviors, it's being undone if families don't understand. That's a reality. So if we actually say, this is why, and it's so beautiful in special education when we can actually explain to families that the reality is we're trying to support your student now because eligibility runs out at a certain age. And the goal is to get them into the community and supporting what they want once they graduate. So if we don't support improving this behavior or extinguishing some of this, then there are gonna be limited opportunities for your student once they graduate. Those are conversations that have to start early. But you can't have that conversation with you on day one. You gotta start building a relationship. Right? Those are important pieces of this work. And so we talked about relationships is on top, because so many people try to develop work without developing relationships. So those positive phone calls home, those introductory letters, but those opportunities for you actually to speak with families and then be quiet. Because we have so many opportunities in education where we invite them in, open house, meet the teacher, and we have everything programmed to a T. And all they did was sit together. And they could have told you something about Johnny or Susie that would change your entire first day, and we never asked. So really, if you're making a phone call, there's some documents we're gonna introduce you to, so that you can ask these prompts and then just listen. Right? Listen to what families are telling you. Here's something that we all know. Relationships do not exist outside of trust. And what we should also know is that trust takes a while to build. That you are inheriting relationships from other people that you know nothing about. Some of those are gonna be great relationships if you're gonna be held to this standard because that's teacher from that. Some of them families are gonna feel like, I might have to fight on day one just to get what I need, and that's the reality. But some of them are gonna be great, even level relationships, and you want to maximize them. But when someone tells you that they trust you, it's saying that they believe that you are a person of good character. It's saying that they trust what you are saying to them. That you care, that you are committed to the success of their family and their children. It also means that they believe you have the skills and expertise that you are also, right? But the idea about developing trust is that it goes to your point earlier. It's a foundation that has to be laid about straight talk and listening to understanding. We have to be communicating. At some point, you're gonna have to make a commitment to a parent, whether it's calling them back, sending something home, something that you said you're gonna do. And if we drop the ball on that, we drop trust, right? Think about it. Parents have ruined trust with you too. It goes both ways. But part of it is making a commitment, being reliable over time, and then showing up for the work. We know that learning doesn't happen without relationships in your classroom. In these moments, when you're gonna be with your special education coordinators, if you're directors, and people are gonna be working with you, you wanna know that they want you to win. Right? And so that's something we want you to hold in the back of your head. We're almost finished, we're rounding out our morning, at least my time is good. But I also want you to think about this from the equity standpoint. That it is an opportunity to engage all families. All families. So when people really think about family engagement, what I learned early on is that people look at it from a deficit mindset, right? Let's think about it. Family engagement came out of work that said that lower income students needed some support. That's where the work comes from, right? Federal programs, Title I. This is what we need to do to increase outcomes for students. But the reality is that family engagement is for every family across every social economic line, every demographic, all of the things. Because when you do family engagement, you're managing expectations of everyone. You're setting the standards for what it looks like. It also provides the information for when people want it. There have been moments where educators become discouraged because you do all of this and none of your parents show up to an event. I see some dead nervous, like I've done this work and they don't show. And what I tell our teams all the time is that the work that you do, it's there. It's ready for them, that you've done what you're supposed to do, right? But have you ever heard about a party that was supposed to be like this grand party, everybody had all these invitations, but nobody talked about the party afterwards? Like you're laughing, right? But if nobody talks about the party afterwards, was it really a good party? No. And that's what we do with families. We tell them how important it is to come to this and do this, and then after it's over, nobody says a word. So what I encourage educators to do is I'm gonna sell you my event. Like if you come, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have that. And if you don't come, I'm gonna show you pictures, you better get this. I'm gonna show you what you didn't get access to, but I'm also gonna say, would you like me to send it? Right? Because you still have access because I created it. So why am I gonna let it sit here? When I can share it with you, and hopefully that will increase the likelihood of you participating next time. Because I'm gonna say, you missed it in August. Are you coming in January? I'm gonna be here waiting for you. Let's talk about it. Here are the four core beliefs about family engagement. I want you to sit with these for a little bit. I'm gonna stop talking, but read these four. Talk at your table for a few minutes about what challenges you. This is the lean into uncomfortableness, right? Some of these you're like, I may do it. Right? But I also want you to remember equity, collaboration, and commitment. 3 minutes, read them, have a conversation, an honest conversation about what challenges you almost through.
Right, the same thing. So, like another, like, yeah, like it's never gonna be interviewed. I want that to be true, but I don't know. Like, I'm not. Give you some things that's very painful, you know, it's like. You do. They're taking that sex. Doing it on my behalf, whatever they have. Without. Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, we have to take care of it. Oh, they're not having one of those. Yeah, what I want is still what is. Like, we have to do.
Finish that off.
And then get the stuff. But of course.
So we're going to discuss these a little further. I'm not gonna actually talk about those that challenge you. Because I know it's real, right? I know experience says that some of these are hard. I can't change your beliefs. It's never my intention to. But I want you to think about ways that your actions can start moving in a direction to show that you're willing to partner with them. Right? The first statement of those 4 core beliefs is that all families have hopes and dreams, right, for their children. I know, just from my 20-something years of education, that you've met families at their worst moment. Right? Like there have been some devastating moments where parents have said things to you, right? They even said, I don't care about it. Right? But there's a reality that sometimes people are overwhelmed with life and they don't show up their best selves. That's a reality. And so in family engagement, the research really says that only 1% of parents are truly apathetic. In fact, if you broke down the research, most families believe that education is the way for their children out of bad situations. That they want their children to aspire higher and higher. Right? That's what research says, and it'll break it down even by race and demographics for you. But that's a huge thing for most families, if this is the word. But sometimes parents don't show it that way. And what I would say to you is that there are other adults that are in that family that may be your better contact. And that family member who is overwhelmed and not able to show up right for you would give you that number if you asked. Would let you engage with another adult to support their child if they're not there. We just have to ask, right? The other part of this is listening to them. Listen beyond the fear. When we work, our department works with families all the time, right? We get the phone calls, the emails, the text messages, and what we hear from families is a lot of fear, a lot of concern. And we have to help them reframe it because what you really want is, let us help you get there. So that's why those introductory phone calls where you're like, hey, I'm new, I'm here, I want to talk with you about your student. What are your concerns? What are your hopes and what are your dreams? And don't be afraid to dream out for your child. Because my goal is to help you do that. And those are the pieces that we're talking about. You're going to see this tool. So I'm only going to talk about this briefly. This is a 1-page profile. You're going to hear it as an all about me document. Our district is gradually moving to this universal IEP process model using charting the life course. This is one of the tools. This tool can actually be used anytime for all manner of things. I'm offering this to you as a tool to start those conversations with families. It has 3 questions that you can ask them about their students. The first one is, what do people like about your child? What are the amazing things? What do they do great? What are the things that people just really run to them for? What are those strengths, right? And you let them talk about their baby. Number 2 is, what's important to you? What is important to you? Like this year, what is important for your child? Are there some cultural things that I need to know? Are there holidays that you celebrate or don't celebrate? Are there people that are important to be invited? This is getting to the heart of who they are. But this number 3 is an amazing question, because this is a question that I want people to ask me. How to best support? How? Think about that. If you could tell, if your supervisor right now asks, what's the best way to support? My team will know. If you tell me, I hear you and I'm listening, but if you show me, if you put it on paper and you make it visual for me, I can process that and do all manner of things with it. I'm visual. That's important. Processing time is important. Asking parents, how is your child learning? What calms them down? What is something that is going to set Johnny off? What's something that he loves that I can motivate with? That's your opportunity to really get it. And it's just 3. Here's the other thing. You don't have to have this piece of paper. You just have to have these 3 questions. And that'll help you learn how to engage with the student and the family. This is another document. It's called the trajectory tool. This goes with hopes and dreams. What do you want for your child? What are your hopes and dreams? What do you want? The second box said, what do you not want? But that's really about refining what you want. How are we getting? How are we going to do this work for you? All of these documents are online. You're going to have access to this, and I believe you already do, but go back and make sure you do it. The second one is impact the families, that all families have the capacity to support learning. Here's the thing, some parents can too, right? Some parents can sit down and do the math that we talked about and watch the video. But there are some parents who may not be able to do the math, but they still have the capacity to sign a paper for the tutor. Do not dismiss the capacity to sign a paper for the tutor, because that's just as important. To get them to the place where the tutoring happens, to bring them to school early is them supporting the learning. We have to support the idea that it works all of those ways. That families have to feel like they can be a part of it. There are 3 things that impact how we learn the way. Cultural background is one. There are some cultures that defer to educators. They will not step in schools because they believe it is sacred ground for educators to establish rules. So we have to know that. There are others who believe that they can demand things and they want things right now from you because that is your job to serve and perform. Advocacy is another one. Whether or not families feel like they can do the work is important. When I ask families to show up to things or to help me, one of the first questions I hear is, what do I have to be able to do? Like, what are you going to require of me? Because that's that. I need to make sure that I can show up and be respected and fit in. And I say, just be you. You're the expert on your child. Your experience, we want to learn with you. We want to grow with you. It's just you that we want in this space. But the third one is a sense of invitation. Whether families truly feel like you want to engage with them. And I would agree, culture doesn't matter as much, efficacy doesn't matter as much, if I really feel like we want to you. Your invitation matters. You're invited to a party and you know no one there, but you know that the person invited you said, I'm waiting for you. I'm gonna be at the door waiting just for you. That invitation means a little more. That's part of building that relationship and supporting them, seeking their ideals, seeking their input on the work. All right, number three is equal partners. We have to really believe that parents are equal partners in the work that we're doing. You're an expert, nobody can take that away from you. You have the credentials, you're in the room. But there are also experts on their children. They know information that you do not know, and we need to work together for this to work out. So invite them into the learning. Share with them what's happening. Share information with them. Share data in easily digestible ways, and share strategies that you're using in your classroom to make this work possible. All right, this is a document that really talks about what strategies improve family engagement. These are the strategies that support the 6 process conditions. So if you're looking at them from your stance, the left-hand side has words in black. The right hand has words in orange. The words on the left side are things that schools often do in the name of family engagement. The reality is those are low impact strategies. I also want you to see that those are typically building level strategies. Open house, potluck, fundraisers, talent shows, school newsletter. But when you really look at where family engagement lives, the things that are in orange are in your wheelhouse. Those are things you do in the classroom to truly engage students. The positive phone calls home, data sharing, one-on-one communication, modeling the learning strategies, academic partner. That's your work. You make a difference, right? High impact family engagement strategies about relationships, sharing data, modeling them, listening, honoring culture, and setting goals. That's what it's about. The last one, we talked about this already, is really reaching out. Reaching out to families and letting them know that they are important. I want you to think about something. This is one of the things, you're gonna make a commitment as soon as I finish. But I want you to think about whose family, when you start your work, have you now spoken to? Whose family has been silent? And I want you to think about being intentional about recruiting them, talking to them, and making them part of your community. That's what reaching out is, right? Two-way communication is about investing time in the work. It's about being positive in that communication. Setting a rhythm, letting families know when you're gonna talk, when you're gonna communicate, making it timely, acceptable, and meaningful. Your work makes a great difference. Hopefully you've seen how classrooms are really where it happens, and then you have the power to truly engage the families and students that you're working with. I also want you to know that you're not doing this work by yourself. You have our department, Family and Community Engagement, here to support you. We work with teachers, families, and community partners to support what your students need. You can call us to do a number of things. These are some of the big rocks we work with. We create workshops for families. We actually gather resources and community partners. We help them navigate special education process because it can be pretty tricky for them. And we also support them with IEP advocacy in our division. You are welcome to visit our libraries. You'll find out where they are. We're at the Learning Center. We have a family resource hub and a food pantry for families at the North Center location. We have a number of opportunities, but most of all, we're available by phone, email, text, or webpage. You guys can reach out and ask us a question, even about a difficult situation you may be having with a family. Resources you want to share with them. Do we have a workshop that can help a family with this? Reach out to us and we'll walk with you through that. But you're not alone. This is a huge district. You truly belong to something special. There's over 5,000 people working to support students in this district, and you're now part of that. So make sure that you're using those resources. As we close it for today, I want you to just take a minute, take a piece of paper, jot down something that you're willing to commit to today. We talked a lot about engaging families. Is it gonna be two-way communication? Or is it gonna be sharing the resources or not? What's something that you're already planning that you can build these two things into? Take a minute and jot yourself a note about something you like. After you are finished with your commitment, I also wanted to encourage you to take a minute and provide feedback using the pickup code that is here on the screen. Hello, you this morning, please know that you are definitely able to reach out to us. I appreciate your time. I have the pleasure of also introducing some of our community partners. So when we talk about family engagement and we talk about partners, you should hear the name Special Education Foundation over and over again in this district, because they are an amazing organization that support our students, our staff, and our families. So I'm going to introduce you to the executive director, Tim Healy. And I believe Shannon, you know, I'm gonna just pronounce your last name. Benedette, who is their program